Early in the morning on the 1st of August, an explosion resounded in the Tskhinvali area. It was an improvised explosive device that injured Georgian police officers. In response, Georgian snipers fired on the Ossetian positions. Separatists reported casualties and injuries. Many experts note that this provocation was the formal pretext for the upcoming war. Shelling of Georgian villages by separatists has resumed. There was return fire. The clashes continued in the following days, now involving the use of grenade launchers and mortars. Later, artillery from South Ossetia was deployed, violating the peace agreement of 1992. During these days, the Russians began evacuating the enclave's residents to their territory. Remember, most of them had Russian passports. Statements flared up from both sides again, but now they were joined by statements from a third-party state that his country would be involved in the conflict on the side of South Ossetia. Journalists from Russia traveled to Tskhinvali to find out what really happened for media coverage and whitewashing of aggression. A pro-government Russian newspaper reported on August 6th that Don Cossacks are preparing for battle in South Ossetia. An independent newspaper reported that on August 6th, Russian military forces are deploying along the border with Georgia. Leaving no doubt, Russia thus demonstrates its determination to protect its citizens in South Ossetia before they are kept safe. Until there is a leading operation to ensure peace. On the 6th of August, Saakashvili tried to contact the president of Russia regarding the conflict. The Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs responded, "The time for presidential negotiations has not yet come." In the meantime, on the 7th of August at 4 in the morning, a strange coincidence, isn't it? Russian armored vehicles entered the Tskhinvali region through the Rocky Tunnel. At the same time, heavy artillery resumed firing on Georgian villages. A few hours later, Georgian Minister Timur Kavashvili had a meeting with Tskhinvali, a representative of Russian peacekeepers, General Kulakmetov, who stated that he was unable to control the military actions of the separatists. President Saakashvili addressed the citizens with a statement regarding the escalation in Tskhinvali. He promised autonomy for Ossetia, amnesty for combat participants, and announced a unilateral ceasefire. Despite such concessions, the situation escalates even further. By evening, the situation worsened. The separatists intensified the shelling in the Georgian villages even more. Closer to midnight, all Georgian positions around Tskhinvali were shelled. The Georgian Armed Forces Commander-in-Chief ordered to begin a defensive military operation. The goal was to protect civilians in the conflict zone, avoid harming separatist hubs, and stop the advance of Russian forces through the Rocky Tunnel. In the morning of August 8, the Georgian government announced that Georgian troops controlled significant territory of the region and had almost expelled the separatists from the capital, Afazi. This operation by the Georgian armed forces was not at all in the Kremlin's plans. Moscow planned to prolong the conflict, to cause maximum civilian suffering, destruction, and to blame the Georgian government. On the morning of August 8, Prime Minister Putin and then President Medvedev condemned Georgia's military actions, pretending to be respectable officials of the European style. Actually, it was more of a prelude to an invasion. And by 10 in the morning, local time, helicopter leaders began striking Georgian positions near the cities of Tskhinvali and Gori. By the end of the day, on August 8, Russian and Ossetian forces had taken control of a significant part of Tskhinvali. Meanwhile, Russian aviation continued to bomb military targets around Tbilisi and destroy Georgian aircraft. Direct clashes between Russian and Georgian military forces took place simultaneously in the Tskhinvali area. The port of Poti on the Black Sea coast was attacked by Russian aviation. Many legends are told about the involvement of the warm Black Sea Fleet of Russia. He was also involved in this aggression. A group of Russian fleet ships began with the flagship, the legendary missile cruiser Moskva, and other ships. The main port of Georgia, Poti, was seized, and all Georgian ships and boats were destroyed in the raid. According to the Kremlin's version, Georgians claimed to have sunk their own fleet in the port to prevent it from falling into the aggressor's hands, which was later proven by military analysts. On August 10th, Ukraine warned the Russian side against the participation of the Black Sea Fleet ships in aggression towards Georgia. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine stated that it will ban the return to Ukrainian territory in Crimea. Regarding the conflict resolution, vessels and ships that might participate in the aforementioned actions. Later, the Ukrainian side admitted that international agreements regulating the presence of the Russian fleet in Ukraine. There are no restrictions on the military use of the fleet. Military bases in regional cities of Georgia, including the city of Gori, were also subjected to bombardment. Residential houses were bombed, resulting in civilian casualties. Airborne units and special forces, including the 76th and 98th Air Police units, began to reinforce Russian troops in the conflict zone. See, Tatas, airborne divisions. Georgia's military reported 10 Russian planes downed, but Moscow acknowledged the loss of only 2. Eventually, Russia admitted to losing 6 aircraft, 3 of which were downed by their own air defense forces. Friendly fire is a characteristic feature of the Russian armed forces. Despite its small size, Georgia's air defense system is powerful against the Russian aviation. Consequently, it was the primary target of the airstrikes. After the Russians managed to destroy the main radars and air defense systems of Georgia, Russian aviation fully dominated the skies over Georgia. Organized armed resistance to the invasion effectively ceased. Russian military units settled in without resistance at the designated frontier. The Georgian command relocated its units and began preparations for defense in Tbilisi. The escalation of the conflict has spread to another separatist region, where units of the unrecognized republic and Russian mercenaries, according to the Russian press, volunteers. Attacks on Georgian positions in the Kodori Gorge began. The Parliament of Georgia introduced martial law for a period of 15 days. The President of Georgia suggested a ceasefire between the parties and the withdrawal of troops. However, this proposal was rejected by Russia, which insisted on the withdrawal of Georgian troops from South Ossetia as a precondition for ceasing fire. The United Nations Security Council was also unable to make decisions regarding the resolution of this conflict. Then, Russia stated that it was conducting an operation to coerce Georgia into peace. This situation significantly worsened on August 11th, when Russia began attacking not only joint ventures close to the front line, but the next city started burning. They went fully to Tbilisi and captured the Georgian cities of Zubdidi. In the west of the country, Russian troops also seized the central route connecting eastern and western Georgia. Despite the agreement signed on August 12th, Russian troops began to actively advance into Georgian territory. Specifically, the cities of Gorisina and Kipote were occupied. Russia actively used strategic weapons in the aggression. In particular, strategic aviation performed military tasks. Rocket systems Toshka-U were delivered through the Rov tunnel. On the stretch of road between Tbilisi and Gori, the movement of a column of heavy equipment into the Georgian capital was observed. Grad installations, self-propelled artillery, tanks and IFVs. On the 16th of August, a railway bridge in the village of Grakali was blown up. This main line connects the east and west of Georgia, but it is the only link to the world for the neighboring Armenia. The situation was critical. President Saakashvili signed the ceasefire plan proposed by the European Union. French diplomats visited Moscow. Negotiations with the Kremlin have started. On August 12th, the French President Nicolas Sarkozy also joined the peace process, offering a plan for peaceful settlement. Cease all military actions, ensure free access to humanitarian aid, and return the Georgian armed forces to their permanent deployment locations. Return the Russian armed forces to the line preceding the start of hostilities, and provide additional security measures by Russian peacekeepers. Begin international discussions on the future status of South Ossetia and Abkhazia, as well as ways to ensure their security. The plan also included a point on the international discussion of the future status of unrecognized republics. However, at Georgia's request, it was changed. After all, he fully implemented the Kremlin plans of the region. As has been repeatedly proven, the Kremlin has not fulfilled and does not fulfill any agreements or obligations. At the end of August, Russia recognized the independence of South Ossetia and Abkhazia, later establishing diplomatic relations with these republics. In response to Russia's actions, the Georgian government severed diplomatic relations with the occupiers. Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov stated that peacekeeping forces of the Russian Federation would now be present in Abkhazia and Ossetia. Their numbers had been increased prior to the invasion, 500 south of Ossetia, and 1,600 people in Abkhazia, and the regular troops within the framework of the Treaty of Friendship, Cooperation and Mutual Assistance. Russian Defense Minister Serdyukov announced, each republic will have 3,800 military personnel. In September, the aggressors' armed forces began withdrawing from the Adezi line. Specifically, withdrawal from western Georgia began. Nearby, a stream was left. Troop withdrawals also took place from Sinaki and Kobe. On October 8, 2008, Russian troops were withdrawn from the buffer zones that border Abkhazia and South Ossetia. It was planned to continue monitoring these areas through the European Union's monitoring station in Georgia. However, European observers reported that Russian formations had not fully withdrawn according to the agreements. Military aggression against Georgia significantly reduced the capabilities of the Georgian army and also added to the Russians' confidence in their impunity. They thus opened the doors for them to plan further crimes against neighboring states. The Georgian armed forces suffered losses of 170 people killed and missing and 1964 wounded, according to official data. Russian losses, according to various official statements, ranged from 48 to 74 killed and from 162 to 340 wounded. According to the UN, since the beginning of hostilities in the region, more than 118,000 people have become refugees. Accusations of ethnic cleansing were made by both sides. Infrastructure, military and civilian facilities were destroyed and damaged. The regions occupied by Russia, officially considered by Georgia, eventually turned into hotbeds of banditry, criminal dealings, and territories that ceased to develop. The Kremlin-imposed authorities in the occupied and virtually unrecognized republics did not respond to this catastrophic situation. And probably there is no opportunity, since puppets don't make decisions on their own. Over time, the situation in both Russian and Georgian societies changed, as did the pro-European policy of the Georgian government, emphasizing not the people. The conflict remains unresolved.